Jason is back. 3 times before,
Sorry, you change your mind?
you have felt the terror, known the madness, lived the horror. But this is the one you've been screaming for. Because Friday, April 13th, will be Jason's unlucky day. Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Now playing at a theater near you. Consult your local listings.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1984 slasher sequel, Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Now, this was marketed as the last film in the Friday the 13th franchise, but let's be honest, folks, there's no way that it was going to be the last movie unless it didn't do well in the box office. And that wasn't the case at all. So there was still a lot of reasons, a lot of profitable reasons for why the franchise would continue after this. That being said, if this actually did wind up being the last film in the series, it's one hell of a way to go out. And you can also look at it as the last film when it comes to the story of human Jason, because after this, other than part 5, which really doesn't even include the real Jason, but in part 6, 7, and 8, it's zombie Jason. It's not even really human Jason anymore. He's an undead walking corpse. So if you look at it that way, that storyline went out with a bang, because this is a fantastic film. I think it's a stellar slasher. It's not only one of the best entries in this series, but it's also one of the best slasher films from this decade, if not best slasher films, period. I really, really enjoy this film. I think it's a great film. And I think it's a blast of blood, gore, boobs, and it's just a joy to watch if you're a fan of this kind of film. It's got the right mix of characters that you care about enough that there is some genuine suspense when Jason is stalking them and taking them out one by one. And on top of that, it delivers the goods when it comes to the gore, which is what a lot of gore hounds like myself want from a slasher movie. Now, the film is directed by Joseph Zito. Prior to this, he did a film called The Prowler, which does have its fans. I'm not one of them. I really don't care for the film that much. I think it has some great gore, but I don't like the film as a whole. I don't think it's that great of a movie. But he definitely did show that he had some skill behind the camera, and I think the producers did realize that ultimately, so that's why they went with Joseph Zito to direct this film. And I think he did an excellent job directing this movie. I love how he handled the film's sense of dread and atmosphere. The film has this permeating sense of dread throughout, as if it's a thick fog that's just rolling in. And on top of that, he really injected a lot of energy into the chase sequences, into the moments of tension, and he knew when to slow things down to build a very creepy and eerie mood. He really excelled when it came to shooting sequences in the dark with just the right amount of lighting to create the right amount of atmosphere. And I heard that there were some cast members like Ted White, who played Jason in this, who didn't really get along with him that well. That's unfortunate, but I still think he did a really good job directing this film. It also has a very slick and stylish look and feel to it. There are a lot of kills in this film, the way that they are shot. It's handled in a way that's very professional and doesn't feel like it's forced or half-assed in any way. And I also really like the fact that for the most part, when it comes to these kills, there was a certain approach to them that was more serious when it comes to how they were shot versus part 3, which was definitely way more cartoonish. And I think that also might be due to the fact that it was trying to be in 3D. So you had the whole 3D gimmick thing. So if it wasn't going for that, then maybe it would be a different kind of film when it comes to how it's shot. But here it's more serious, and as a result, it's more brutal. This is one of the most brutal films in the series when it comes to the kills. I mean, there's a guy who gets smashed in a shower and gets his head crushed with Jason's bare hands. A guy gets impaled in the groin by Jason. There's another character that gets a corkscrew in his hand and then gets a machete to the face. There's a lot of brutal, wince-inducing kills in this. And I feel the way that they are shot is a big reason for it. Zito definitely knew how to make these scenes have the right amount of impact and power. And going back to the mood and the atmosphere, I just love the way he shoots scenes that take place in a shadowy, dark room. He, in some ways, took an old dark house approach, like an old Universal monster movie or one of those old dark house kind of films. And so you have a good chunk of the movie taking place in these cabins in the woods, and there's a good chunk of the film that also takes place in these cabins while the power is out. So the film really makes the environment feel like it's its own character, like it's an extension of Jason in a lot of ways, and I love that. I love how Zito moves the camera around, follows what might as well be the force of Jason that's on his way up the stairs, and then it focuses in on the rainy window, and it's one of those things where it does a really good job setting the right mood and the right atmosphere of this impending sense of doom, that the storm is coming, and the storm in this case is Jason. The screenplay is also a highlight. I think the script by Barney Cohen, I thought it was a really nice script. I like the way that a lot of characters are written. There's a lot of interesting and different dynamics between the characters. Some nice witty lines of dialogue. The whole bit about the dead fuck. Hilarious. I put the information in my computer and the computer says you're a dead fuck. What? Yeah, you're a dead fuck and the computer don't lie. I love that. It's hilarious. And it's not only a script that works when it comes to the scenes with the teenagers when they're partying and just there to have some fun. It also works well when it comes to the other characters that are taking things a little bit more seriously. They're not just into drinking and doing whatever. When it comes to the Jarvis family, I like the dynamic that it creates, where you have the Jarvis family, which is more understated, doesn't really take as many risks in terms of being promiscuous, doing whatever. And you also have a different dynamic with Tommy, who is a younger kid. And I love the way that Tommy is written. He's a huge fan of monster movies and horror films, and he's really into creating his own makeup effects and masks. In a lot of ways, it was a tribute to Tom Savini, and I think it actually was intended to be a tribute to Tom. And I thought that was really terrific and nice to see. And I just like the dynamic of Tommy. And I like how he comes up with a plan on the fly to save his sister and to take Jason by surprise by cutting his hair and using his skills of disguise to make himself look like a young Jason and take Jason aback and make Jason uncomfortable enough so they could take him out. And speaking of taking Jason out, I really love how the script handles Kimberly Beck's character, Trish Jarvis, in terms of how she handles Jason. I love how she holds her own, even more so than, honestly, any other final girl in the franchise to date. I really love Amy Steele, but they didn't give her a whole lot to do, except she hit him with the machete and did a little bit of that. But Trish is kicking his ass. She puts a hammer in his neck, hits him in the head with a television, then takes the machete and cuts his hand in two, and then she's not afraid. Like, she's even like, I'm going to give you something to remember us by. I love that. I love that. I love how much of a badass she is. And it also works well when you have Tommy and he hits Jason with the machete, and then he gives Jason a taste of his own medicine. So there's a lot of satisfying stuff in this, not just with the kills and the gore, which there is a lot of really satisfying kills in that regard, but also when it comes to the action. It's a very fast-paced film for the most part. A lot of it is just this extended chase, and I felt the screenplay did a good job making the chase consistently engaging. A good part of that is due to these sequences where you have people jumping out of windows trying to escape from Jason, or people getting thrown out of windows. And speaking of those scenes, I love the way those scenes are shot as well. The use of slow-mo while it's in the rain and it's at night and there's all lightning flashes and stuff. It's really a nice looking series of shots. Some of the best use of slow-mo in the series, I would say, is in this film, in sequences like that. And also sequences near the end, which I felt the slow-mo enhanced the overall mood and the atmosphere as well, in terms of creating a sense of unease. So yeah, it's just a really great film in a lot of different ways. From the way the characters are handled, the variety of characters. I mean, you have the teens who are just into partying and having sex, but you have the Jarvises. Then you have characters like Doug, who is just he's a drifter. There's a connection between Doug and Jason, apparently, where I think one of his sisters was killed by Jason, and one of his sisters shares the same name as one of the victims from part 2. So you can make the argument that maybe there's a connection there. And I like that. I like that about the film, that you have a character like that. I would have loved to have seen more when it comes to that character. A little bit more backstory. A little bit more scenes with him. But yeah, really nice script. I like the script. The twist at the end, I don't know what they're trying to go for with Tommy being the killer. It's a little clunky, but I don't know if that's really what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to do an ambiguous thing where it's like he could be, but then he could not be. He'd just be traumatized. I really don't know what they're trying to go for there. And I think that's the point. I don't think you really are supposed to know clearly what they're trying to go for. But it does feel a little clunky, I gotta be honest. But other than that, I don't really have any issues with the story. I think it goes by at a good pace. It's consistently engaging. I like how it actually not only story-wise follows up after the last film, part 3, but actually has a scene where you show the police and the ambulances and the coroners at the scene of the crime at the barn at the end of part 3. I like that. I like the fact that the film ties together in that fashion. And I just really love this film. I love the final chapter. I like the characters. I like the kills. I like the direction. I like the film when it comes to the other technical aspects of the production, like the editing, the cinematography. The score by Harry Manfredini is even an upgrade over the last film, because even though it does repeat some of the similar beats, it puts a few more tweaks on things, so it sounds a little more unique and a little bit more intriguing in that regard. And the cast. This has one of the best casts in the entire series. I mean, you got young talent like Corey Feldman as Tommy, who did a really great job with this character. I really liked this character. I felt for him. I sympathized with him. I related to him because he was really into practical makeup effects, something that I was a huge fan of and still am to this day. When I was a kid, I was a huge fan of how the makeup effects artists created the gore and created the creature effects, and I saw a lot of myself in Tommy Jarvis. And I like how Trish Jarvis is written as well. And I think Kimberly Beck, she sells herself too short and sells this film too short. She's talking about it and she's like, this is more like a C- movie. 100% disagree with that statement. I don't agree with that at all. This is an A+ slasher film for me personally. And Kimberly Beck's performance is a big part of that. She was strong. She was able to hold her own. She had a good amount of charisma and on-screen presence. And the rest of the cast, I mean, Erich Aronson as Rob, Barbara Howard as Sarah, Joan Freeman as Tracy, Peter Barton as Doug, Crispin Glover as Jimmy. Like, Crispin Glover was great in this. It was really nice to see him let loose and not be as serious and be a little goofy and do the dance while Love Is a Lie is in the background and do all that kind of stuff. It was nice to see Crispin Glover in this kind of role, talking about how he's not a dead fuck and you know, where's the goddamn corkscrew? Judie Aronson, Camilla Moore, those two actresses played Samantha and Tina. Lawrence Monoson, who was in Last American Virgin, he plays Ted. Ted was a lot of fun. He was a dick, but he was the entertaining kind of dick. And yeah, overall, just a really nice, fun cast. Bruce Mahler is Axel. I think that's the guy who works at the hospital, and he's called the Super Bowl of self-abuse, whatever that means. Yeah, it's just a really fun, bloody blast of a slasher. I even want to give Ted White credit. Ted White was 58 years old when he did this film playing Jason. And he didn't look like he had lost a step at all. He didn't look like he was struggling. He didn't even look like he was 58. He was spry, really capable, took a lot of bumps, took a lot of hits, and definitely had this very intimidating presence about him. He was a beast in this film. And I can see why a lot of fans like this Jason the most, or they consider this to be one of the best Jason performances, because he was a force of nature to be reckoned with. And Ted White also sells this film too short. He called it a piece of shit, and I definitely disagree with that. No offense, Ted, but no, this is not a piece of shit. And I think it's because he's got a certain bias against it, because He didn't have a good time shooting the film. He didn't relate to the director that much, or their relationship was rocky. On top of that, apparently he thought Corey Feldman was a brat. So when he smashes through the window, which is another great looking shot here, and grabs Corey Feldman's character, Tommy, that was all done for real. He grabbed Tommy, and apparently he went early, and the reaction from Corey Feldman is genuine. Like, he's really terrified. Hey, it made for a good shot, but yeah, apparently Ted White's not a fan of the film, and, you know, teach their own, but I think this is a terrific movie. I think it's a great slasher. Like I said, from all the other technical standpoints, this film also excels. The cinematography by Yao Fernandez, the editing by Joel Goodman and Daniel Lowenthal. I really like the editing in this film. It's very tightly wound, in a lot of ways, almost like a powder keg. It's about as fast-paced as an axe as it flies through a door. And it's got a good sense of humor. But then it also knows when to take things seriously enough when it comes to the brutality of the kills. I keep mentioning that, but it deserves to be mentioned numerous times because there is a certain brutality to these kills. It doesn't feel like it's all fun and games. And on top of that, Tom Savini was in rare form here. All of the kills, for the most part, looked great, looked brutal, looked intense, looked real. And then you have Jason's death, which is a real showstopper. I mean, you could say his death is in air quotes because he doesn't really die. But it's still a awe-inspiring bit of practical effects with the puppet head of Jason and the machete as it goes in and digs right into his face, and then as his head slides down the machete, it's a great shot, it's a great effect, and it's a fitting way to end a great movie. That's just a great time. So yeah, I don't get the critical disdain that this film got upon its release. I don't get a lot of the critical disdain these films have been getting, except for maybe some of the weaker entries in the series. I can understand the bad reviews for those, but for this, I don't get it at all. Roger Ebert, may he rest in peace, but him calling this an immoral, reprehensible piece of trash is pretty low, and I think that's a bunch of bullshit. It just showcases how much of a bias he had against these kind of films. And it's unfortunate because you would think that he would be able to at least appreciate the technical aspects of this film, the technical mastery from Tom Savini or from the director and Joseph Zito. But nope. It's a piece of trash. I think that opinion is a piece of trash. But anyway, I don't really have much else to say about the final chapter, except it's right up there as what I would probably consider the best entries in this franchise. It might be my favorite. I really like it that much. So, yeah, thanks for watching my review of the final chapter, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.